intro looks like so beautiful, Johnny.
Welcome back to the CONVO Couch, ladies and gentlemen. I am Pasta Jardula.
And I'm Fiorella.
And Johnny Sue is on the ones and twos. And Michael Cruz was also the first one in the house today. Michael Cruz, we have a little debate to go on, my man. I'm going to read you a little 12 points to the impeachment thing, but let me tell you something. All bets are off. This is a new age. This is a new time. A man who was a reality TV star won the White House, and he won it in a very unconventional way. And I think when it comes to this impeachment process, first of all, they're doing everything in the dark, which makes them look so hypocritical. And secondly, it's a spot where the Democrats themselves have done some very dirty, nefarious things. You should watch our show last night, I think you did, with Mark Sloboda, and talking about what went on in Ukraine. So when it comes to the impeachment as a whole, I think it's a bad idea. But yeah, anyways, you have anything to say about those shows last night, fam? I think you made a new friend in Moscow.
Yeah, I'm a Russian bot, as many of you know, so I felt right at home with Mark, and he was very knowledgeable on the subjects. What is that noise? Do you hear that? Oh, okay, because it's very loud. I don't know why it's just
okay. It's
it was kind of distracting.
I don't know. It just happened on the blue.
He is he's very knowledgeable. I want to go back and even watch that show because he knows so much about foreign policy, and we fall pretty much in line in regards to foreign policy. And as far as foreign policy goes, he did note like Tulsi Gabbard is like the best candidate out there. A lot of people don't like to hear that, and I, as a Bernie supporter, I'm willing to admit that because I feel like she's just not afraid of really telling people, informing them what's going on in the world. Like, she's giving people updates, which we're going to go over. And I think that's important because the majority of Americans don't really know. It's it's not really our fault in a lot of ways because the mainstream media doesn't ever educate you on that unless you take a human geography class or a history person. Like, you really don't get that kind of education about the world. Like, I've always been into it. I've always been into world history and learning about other countries. But if you don't like that, like, it's never something that's ingrained on you. And most Americans can't point to things on a map, to countries on a map. So I think it's important in educating people. I think it's important in understanding. And it's also important in admitting and taking accountability as a country for all the things we've done. So what he did, what he was talking about in regards to Syria, in regards to Ukraine, is pretty much in line with what we've been saying. And it makes me feel personally like, okay, we're on the right track here because this person that's a political analyst that knows so much is saying these same things. So we're not the only ones. We're not alone here.
And I think he had a great time on the show because we brought that fam spirit that we normally bring. You know, what we intended the show to be, like, to bring our personalities, to bring it in there, to make it more delightful, to make it more enjoyable. And then Johnny with the ones and twos, spinning stuff in and cutting stuff up. It was just a great show. I couldn't spend an hour and a half watching because I had to catch up, because as we were doing the Mark Sloboda show, Max Blumenthal was all over the TV for what he went through in his arrest, but he was also on RT as well on Going Underground, talking about these same things that we were talking about with Mark Sloboda yesterday. And the thing I learned the most yesterday, what I was loving, like, because I have all these questions set up, was who the Kurds really are, and how we talked about how they're in 4 different regions, which I knew, but I always thought they were a lot more aligned. And he said, nope, not whatsoever. They have different ideology, different politics. So they're never going to come to a state conclusion by themselves anyways. And it was a foregone conclusion to think they would get their own Kurdistan. Yes, they were lied to. It's suffering what's going on. We have our friend Howard Gold, who's another junkie when it comes to Syria. And we always talk about that, the plight of the Kurds and what had happened. But it was so educational and it was fun yesterday. Like, we're going to do that again. We're going to talk about some more stuff. But wow. And what's going on too. Also, Tulsi Gabbard. And we're going to dive right into this. The first topic, I believe, she was having a commission yesterday. She called a press conference, the 9/11 conference.
Yeah, and it's a big deal for her to do this. I mean, just a snippet, she basically said she wants to hold people accountable for what they did on 9/11. I can't recall, correct me if I'm wrong, that a president has ever said anything like that, or a presidential candidate even. And anybody in Congress except Gravel, I would say. Yeah. But
maybe Kucinich I think Dennis Kucinich kind of knew who they were too as well. And even Bernie's been pretty tough when it comes to the kingdom.
Oh, absolutely. He has absolutely been tough. But I'd flat out say you guys need to be held accountable for what you did in 9/11. Maybe Mike Gravel, but other than that, I haven't really seen.
Mike Gravel was the champion of that. And when we talk about Tulsi, she's been getting hit with this whole war on hawk and dove on regime change. This explains what's going on, and more importantly, within this commission, she's going right after Donald Trump, and the way you are supposed to go after Donald Trump,
right.
Where 50% of the people who didn't vote in the last election will say, "Hey, wait a second, she's right," and they're just painting this picture of like, "Look, hey man, this is Saudi's bitch over here, Donald Trump. I'm standing with the survivors and the families of victims of what went on, and all they're asking for is the truth. The American people want the truth, and all signs point to you, Mr. Donald Trump, your government are stopping us from seeing the actual evidence of what took place and the nefariousness of the Saudi government that not only did this president go out and support, but the last president." Supported, and the president before them went out and support, like you said, has there
Saudi
been anybody?
Arabia and Israel who are in like meddling in our country, and we're meddling in theirs, and it's like this relationship. It's a three-way relationship that we have, and let's get started, fam. Let's
go to Tulsi's opening statement, right? I mean, this was great here. This is how you go after Donald Trump.
18 years ago, our nation was attacked by Al-Qaeda, radical Islamic terrorists. This is something that is commonly known, but the reality is we still don't fully know was whether or not they were aided by the Saudi government, enabling them to successfully carry out this attack on our nation. Thousands lost their lives on that day. We honor the memory of every single one of them. Those who were just getting to work that morning, children who were getting dropped off at daycare, first responders who rushed into those crumbling towers to save lives, and the first responders who have been lost since. Never, ever will we forget the heroes who sacrificed their lives to save others, and we will always honor the memory of those who were killed on that terrible day. The families who are here with us today are now and forever an enduring reminder of all that was lost on 9/11. And we remember back after September 11th, President Bush stood in the rubble of the Twin Towers and said that we would never forget, that we would seek out and destroy those responsible. His rallying cry, every nation in every region now has a decision to make. You are either with us or you are with the terrorists. Because of what happened on that day, like so many Americans, I made a decision to answer the call to serve, to use my life to defend the safety and security of the American people, proud to wear the uniform of our country. I was determined to defeat and destroy the evil that visited us on September 11th. The safety and security of the American people is exactly why we are gathered here today. Families who lost their loved ones want the truth, and they deserve the truth. They want answers. They deserve answers. The American people deserve to know exactly what happened and who was behind it. Now, 15 out of the 19 attackers were Saudi citizens. And there are still, even as we are approaching 20 years after this attack took place, there are still ongoing questions as to whether the Saudi government or personnel within their government were involved in any way with this attack, how they aided the attackers. There's been an investigation into this question, but to date, those findings are being kept hidden from these families who are gathered here today and from the American people. This is absolutely unacceptable. I'm calling on the Trump administration and the FBI to release the findings of their investigation into the Saudi government's involvement in the attacks on 9/11. And today I'm reintroducing a resolution that was introduced in the last Congress, HRES 663, reintroducing this resolution to require the FBI and intelligence agencies to release this important information to the American people. Not a highly redacted version of this information that makes no sense, but a declassified version that actually speaks to the truth of what led to that attack on 9/11. We are 18 years removed from this terrible crime, and the victims of this crime, the families who are here today, the American people deserve all of the evidence to fully come to light. Thousands of veterans, my brothers and sisters in uniform, have sacrificed blood, lives, and limbs. And the American people have sacrificed trillions of our taxpayer dollars to bring justice to these killers. We are gathered here today, standing as fellow Americans, calling on our government to finally bring everyone responsible for this attack to justice. Thank you.
And Johnny, you can skip the second one. We can just go to the third one where the lawyer tells the truth, because she does mention in her speech, fam, that it's the Saudi government, that it was 15 of the 19 people. And next we're going to play the lawyer on to explain and just set it out. And once again, this is who the hawk is. This is who we're going to be a hawk on. And I think when you see all these people use that statement and then try to compare her to George Bush for crying out loud, or Hillary Clinton,
or even
Obama, it's just ridiculous. She understands who she's got to be a hawk on with.
And it's not just the people, and I think it's very clear that it's not just the Saudis, it's the American leaders who manipulated the situation and lied to the American people
Covered
and
up.
sent all those people, covered up and spent all of this money, all of our money, to do this. I mean, this has been going on like pretty much most of my life.
Exactly.
And it's crazy. And we still have troops in Afghanistan.
Yeah. And, you know, I lost my cousin, my first cousin in the World Trade Center. I don't talk about it too often, whatnot. You know, I don't want to exploit his death in any way, shape, or form, but I understand like some of these families, how they are feeling. My cousin worked for a company called Cantor Fitzgerald, and he had some college on his resume. He had little college. He had high school education, but he was that true story of working so hard from the bottom all the way up the top. Had 3 children that were on multiple sports teams, and they lived in New Jersey. And I remember going to that funeral, fam, and it was really, really hard to see that, all these kids crying. I mean, my second cousin, his child was like 7 years old, and the daughter was 16, and then there was another child of 13 in the middle, and to just one day, you know, come home and their daddy's gone. And funny thing is that he went into work early that day so the president of the company could take his child to the first day of kindergarten. That's why you'll hear the story about the story of Cantor Fitzgerald. Now, with some form of ease in my mind, you know, my cousin didn't suffer because they were actually they identified half of his leg from DNA because he was facing where the first plane hit. So he died probably on impact. But it's scary and it sucks. And here is Tulsi, not only just seeking the truth for what's deserving of the American people, but she's also making a statement. She's putting Donald Trump right in the corner and saying, hey, man, are you going to be Saudi's bitch, or are you going to release the information? This is how you
And
go
not
at
only
him.
Donald Trump, but the intelligence agencies and the
Absolutely.
FBI. Because these people have been covering this up and have been making deals with this, acting like, I mean, they're our allies.
Yeah.
And that's disgusting because of what they've done to other countries, including the Yemeni people.
Yeah.
And, you know, is the same thing with Israel. And I feel like, Bernie calls out Israel and she calls Saudi Arabia. I feel like we need to call them both out. And they both need to be completely held accountable.
And let me make it clear, too. I don't think Tulsi's been cozying up too much with Israel. Some of her stances could be a little bit more, but she's not been a friend of theirs whatsoever. Trust me, the people from AIPAC are not crazy about Tulsi Gabbard getting in and messing in. Here's the lawyer, and Johnny pulled up H Resolution 663. It deals a lot with burn victims, which is the kind of the situation. But You'll see that last bit of clause, Johnny. I read it yesterday. It says that they must make all the information out there. In other words, they got to put it out there. They can't withhold anything in the name of national security. And that's what they keep on saying. Mm-hmm. It's all about national security. We can't release information.
Democracy, national security,
it's
protecting
an ongoing
our
investigation.
blah, blah, blah.
It's just another way of saying, hey, we're not going to show the American people stuff.
Right.
We're going to hold on to it. It's about imperialism. It's about domination. It's about control. Take a look at the lawyer who really paints a great picture over here.
My name's Jim Kreindler. It's been the great honor and privilege of my life to work with people who have fought so hard and done so much And I can't begin to express how gratified we are to have you standing with us. Now, we know that on January 15th, 2000, 18 months before the 9/11 attacks, the first lead hijackers arrived in Los Angeles and were provided essential assistance by Saudi government officials. We've identified 11 Saudi government officials, mostly in the Ministry of Islamic Affairs, who provided them money, apartments, transportation, English lessons, flying lessons, everything they needed to mount their attacks on 9/11. We know that Saudi Arabia, in its files, has detailed evidence about what these 11 officials did and what other, even higher Saudi government officials did to work with al-Qaeda. We know that because of the guts, the determination, and the desire to never let go from the truth, FBI agents who are now out of the department worked the case on their own until they were shut down in early 2016. And in their files is detailed information about the FBI's investigation into the activities of these Saudi government officials. I and my colleagues on the legal team are disgusted and sickened by the fact that not only, and not surprisingly, Saudi Arabia insists on keeping what the little they're giving us confidentiality, but our own government has insisted on confidentiality, so we cannot share with our brothers and sisters in this fight what we know. We are nauseated by the documents that will detail what the Saudi Arabian officials have done are still kept secret under the excuse that we know to be a lie, that there is an ongoing investigation. There has not been a single arrest, indictment, much less conviction, of any of the dozens of accomplices who worked with the 19 murderers. People say, you're optimistic that you're going to prevail. And our answer is there's nothing to do with optimism. We will not rest until the truth comes out and justice is done, because we are telling the truth. We are right and we are honest. And I can't begin to express to you how much it means for you to be in this fight with us until it is done. Thank you.
I really hope that goes viral. That needs to, I really do, because that explains everything, the frustration. We are sickened and nauseated from the fact that our own government is not telling the truth about how our family members were murdered. I'm sorry.
Murdered based on a lie, like on a bunch of lies, to be honest. And then we went to war based on a pack of lies. And then we are still living the consequences of said wars. And the people that have represented our country since then have all been instrumental in keeping this facade of lies. And, and now that's not even touching on a lot of the supposed quote unquote conspiracy theories on that even go deeper than that. Yeah. I mean, this is just the tip of the iceberg. And
tip of it. You just hit it on the nose.
Right, because Mike Gravel kind of mentioned it before.
Yeah.
And he's kind of been, reluctant to kind of talk about it. But he has mentioned it before, and a lot of people out there, have been talking about the buildings and the demolition and et cetera. And it's not, out of disrespect, but it's out of, there were a lot of things that were lies in during that time, and we're just now starting to grasp just how deep those lies went.
Yeah. And once again, it's not just this president. We're going to show you this next clip right over here, because Once again, the last president was all about this too as well. And what you're saying, fam, I know it probably excited some people. It's like, because I even wanted Tulsi in her opening statement to say, we want to find out, if this country did what, and any other countries I wanted her to say. But I was talking with Johnny before. We got to start with Saudi Arabia first.
Yeah.
Before we go to that big picture, and I'm not saying anything, ladies and gentlemen. Let's start with Saudi Arabia first, because that's where it starts. That's where the links begin. That's where the truth will start to unfold. And then we can look at other countries and other places down the road.
Yep.
But to say that just like, the USS Liberty, when Lyndon Baines Johnson said, I will not embarrass our allies like Israel when it comes to that situation, same thing is going on right now. That we're protecting our allies. The deep state and the inner circle of the elites are not letting this go out because they have business deals with Saudi Arabia and these countries.
But they put these business deals over like the morality and the integrity of what these allies have done.
Yeah.
And with our help and the terrorism that we've created that has led to all this death and destruction. So.
And let's make sure that we listen to the lawyer call somebody else out. Maybe the last president. I don't know.
Everyone should. Every presidential candidate should make that pledge.
Yeah.
What's been the response from Trump, from Obama to this sort of request?
Let me say this. Something awful happened in 2016. Congress overwhelmingly passed JASTA, the law that lifted the immunity Saudi Arabia claimed protected it from suit. President Obama vetoed JASTA. There is no reason why that should have been vetoed in terms of the law or protecting our country. Congress overrode the veto 98-1 in the Senate, 346 to 77 in the House. At the same time, the FBI agents who on their own had resurrected the investigation were shut down by people who are in high levels of the Bureau today.
You can go stop there.
Because...
But as you can see, like, you know what I'm saying? It wasn't nefarious, but the veto gets overridden, and then all of a sudden the FBI funding gets shut down for the cases. Come on, forces are working against us. It's time we wake up and understand these things. We have to go for the person. And you can see there's the article, Obama vetoes the 9/11 bill, right? You put it up, it's up there. And I'm not going to even go into it and read some quotes about why Obama didn't want this going through. He used the excuse of protecting American military men, that they didn't want to get caught up in the suits. So it's disgusting, but it's time we start taking a look and start lining ourselves with the people and the media like Max Blumenthal's and these Slobodas and all these people who are calling out the deep state by name and by recognition, because this is what it's all about. They used our people as currency and allowed them to die and cover for the kingdom of Saudi Arabia.
That's exactly what they did.
Yeah.
That's exactly what they did.
So before we get on to the next topic, do we have anything else? I want to read some super chats real quick.
Oh, good.
All right. Alex Lopez, thank you for the super chat contribution. And it's always appreciated on the couch.
You guys are going to make me hurt him.
You guys rock. Thanks for all the hard work.
I think they want to see that.
Thank you, Alex Lopez. I have a feeling they're kind of getting into it. You guys like the jingle? Well, maybe we could write another one. We'll take a look. We'll see. But is there any other super chat that I miss? I got them all. So let's get on to the next topic. Fam. Sorry, hold on. I want to... We're here. Let me get this one here. Get rid of that, get some space, and we are there. Boom. Earlier in the day, criminal justice reform. Was that you, Johnny?
Johnny?
Yeah. Okay. Johnny got some stuff going on over here.
Johnny.
Hello. Okay.
So tell us what's going on over here, John.
So earlier that day, the same day that she did the 9/11 press conference, Tulsi also attended a criminal justice reform forum.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see this here. I recommend everybody to go watch it. It's 20 minutes, and it's all fantastic policy that she's been talking about.
Yeah, her tweet was basically about ending cash bail, ending doing what is it? Marijuana, legalizing marijuana.
Yeah.
Also decriminalizing it, and then having, what is it, like wiping out people's records for low-level, nonviolent drug offenses. It's good. It's good. I'm happy to see her and Bernie put out legislation like that.
Yeah.
Because,
this is important.
Or stances like this, because this is the fact is that this has to happen now. We have way too many people. It really irritates me because we have a lot of people that have profited off of the marijuana industry that are now, it's okay. They're making a ton of money, but in the beginning, these same, like the people who started, like, selling marijuana or like just consuming a lot of people of color, black and brown
people of color who made money in marijuana are sitting in jail while these corporations are making millions now.
It's disgusting.
And they're still sitting in jail for the same reason that these people are making
millions on.
Fam, I'm one of those people who hates corporate cannabis, and this is the reason
and
why.
Bayer and Monsanto's combination is, of course, dangerous because these private companies, these big corporations want to get a hold of marijuana. They want to turn it into basically a pill form, which, of course, if you are a stoner, if you care, if you're a hippie, a pill is not. It's just not. It's just, you don't know what's in there, and it's disgusting. And these people are using that, and they're already making money off of it. A lot of these people, and there's people sitting in jail for that. Families destroyed. I mean, when a parent goes to jail, think about the kids and the structure that falls apart in that. So it's a big deal, and I think more candidates should be supporting that. I mean, I think it's very sad that only two out of all the presidential candidates are really pushing for this.
I mean, and we have to make marijuana part of our healthcare, I think, CBD oils and whatnot, and other forms of alternative medicine. I think it's got to be there. It's going to also bring down the cost and whatnot, because a lot of people use marijuana medication-wise for anti-anxiety to keep them calm. I mean, I've been to the our city council to talk and to defend these local marijuana dispensaries that have abided by the law. And the reason why I like to go stand up for them is they give away a lot of their product to poor people, homeless people, veterans that are on the street that need some sort of anti-anxiety medicine. I've actually seen people show up at city council and speak to the city council and say, I need this. This is a medicine for me. But when corporate cannabis comes in, first of all, I don't want Monsanto or now Bayer, who owns Monsanto, putting pesticides in my weed, fam. That's a big no-no. And that's what it's going to come to with these large amount of crops, especially they're going to do the same thing they do in every single other industry of food or whatnot. They poison us, and now they want to poison our marijuana. Hate it. But it's going to really these people who use that medicine, the corporate places, they don't give away, and they're not as friendly to these poor people and these homeless people, and seeing people who have had a history of taking care of these people, knowing, hey, take this, man. Take this. You need this. You're on the streets tonight. You're cold. That's not going to help it happen in a corporate world.
No.
They're going to count every single dollar, every single strand, every single bud. They're going to overcharge you. They're going to kill the ozone by freaking using packaging. Like MedMen uses like crappy wooden packaging. You know what I'm saying? They don't even have weed packaging. It's terrible. So it's something we went out. And I'm glad Tulsi's talking about criminal justice reform, because that's a huge part, fam. A lot of people in this country specifically are in jail for marijuana.
And I have to point out that Bernie Sanders' marijuana bill would be included under the Medicare for All plan. So that is
awesome.
That is something that is like, okay, now you don't have to pay. And I'm sure people are scared of this, are scared of that. I don't think it would kill the business. I still think that people would be able to sell it regardless of that. But I still think that's awesome, because it is a medication to many people. And, it's something that shouldn't be. We need to end the stigma of that. Like, you smoke, like, what are you? Like, it's like alcohol is so terrible for you, but our culture encourages people to drink, up to a certain point, till a certain time ago, encourage people to smoke. And look what happened with the vapes, with the cigarette vape stuff. That shit was terrible.
I know.
So
it's funny, because back in the days, they used to have commercials like that where a doctor would come out and surgery light up a cigarette and stuff, and it promoted and fancied whatnot. And what I really had hoped when it came to this business is they would do the opposite what they do for regular businesses. We talk about regulations where small businesses can't open up. I'd hope they did it kind of reverse, where they would make it really hard for corporate cannabises to get, and really lift up these small dispensary owners, because those small dispensary owners are usually more likely to take care of poor people on the streets that really need this medicine medicine the most. Is that it on that one?
Yeah.
So
You got something
a
else?
part of that forum, most importantly, that really popped out to me, and that no other presidential candidate I think has even spoken on, was that she spoke about Jeffrey Epstein.
Yes, she did.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
And
That's crazy. I didn't know that.
Yeah, she
missed
got a
that
tweet
one.
up. Go ahead, put that up if you want to. And she's got a little video there too as well.
Sophia
and you know how I feel about
Zaldibar,
this stuff.
she's shared this with us. She's part of the MCSC network fam. And here we are.
Now let's look at what happened recently in Florida. You have a multimillionaire named Jeffrey Epstein who went to jail in Florida for molesting girls. He was allowed to leave prison 12 hours a day, 6 days a week on a work release program, even allowed to return back to his mansion while he was serving time. Why not have house arrest and work release options ready for everyday Americans who commit nonviolent offenses instead of only offering these options as a loophole for the rich and powerful to exploit? Now let's look
Wow.
at...
Yeah. I mean,
Double whammy.
That's
She's
a-
always got
that's-
double whammy, this
that's
girl.
that's a great point. And it's Florida too, Tulsi. I mean, Florida has they if you're rich and powerful, you can get away with a lot over there, unfortunately. And that has to change. And she's right. And the crimes this man was accused of and obviously guilty of,
Jesus, yeah.
compared to, a poor person who can't pay something or who stole something to pay for their sick relative, because that's been happening too. I mean, Breaking Bad isn't too far off from what people have been doing. And it's unfortunate because it's all connected. It's all part of the capitalist system that's falling apart. It's all part of not having health care. It's all part of just not making enough money and people pitted against each other. And the rich and powerful get away with anything they want. And she's just, for a lot of people who say she doesn't talk about she doesn't talk about class warfare, and she's said it herself, and we've talked about this, but she does talk about income inequality and the rich and powerful and the powers that be against the majority of the people. It's just she chooses not to use divisive language as she thinks it is.
It is, yeah. That's what she thinks.
Right, that's what she thinks. And I don't think it's, but that's just her opinion. So to say that she doesn't talk about that is entirely false.
Yeah, I think there's the line where people think who she holds accountable. Like a lot of people will hold like the rich, let's eat the rich accountable, but she's looking at the elites and the super rich, and she kind of points them out little by little. Certain times.
It's a different way of doing it.
It's a different way of doing things. Where we kind of look at it like we've had experiences where we understand financial stuff, and hoarding of wealth is a kind of like somewhat of a ideology problem. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's people kind of sometimes get really selfish and hoard their wealth in areas where they can be more loving, be more understanding, and be more open, and realize that we're all part of a society, and that person who's dying, that children who's dying, is also your child as well. And we need to take somewhat of accountability from some of those people who have made it, but they get really selfish, standoffish, and they kind of vote for people and policies who will not help, but hurt the average worker on the street. And that's where we need to come together somehow in realizing that, hey, man, yeah, you made a lot of money, you did well, but understand you have a place in society to pay it forward and to look out for the smaller guy who might not have been as fortunate as
and
you.
I think at least Bernie and her echo that, and Bernie also said, you need to stand up. Are you willing to stand up for somebody you don't know?
Exactly.
In that rally, and that was a very powerful moment because you're willing to do that. It's about compassion. It's about a collective sort of thinking, and the difference between those two and the other candidates is the whole mentality of, oh no, you get yours, you're done, and that's what that's what capitalism does. I mean, capitalism in its by definition is you have to exploit someone else to get yours, and that's why I don't believe in it. So yeah.
And on yesterday's show, we talked about it with Mark Sloboda about who were the biggest funders of ISIS and Al Qaeda and whatnot, and actually what Turkey's trying to do when they talk about the Idlib province, and we're talking about northwestern Syria, in these areas, which he's trying to move in these refugees and these affiliates of Al Qaeda, Al Nusra, which would started with the Mujahideen. Max Blumenthal talks about this as well. And here is Tulsi once again recognizing who she's got to be a hawk on and who is funding it, because it's not just America funding jihadists. Turkey is also one of, and I know Howard Gold would love to say that because he always talks about Erdogan, and this is for you, Howard Gold, because I know you can't stand Erdogan. And Tulsi kind of, once again, specifically lets you know who we're going to be hawks on when it comes to terror.
Good morning, everybody. I'm getting ready for National Guard duty this morning, but wanted to take a minute to mention something that's been in the news lately. Turkey's President Erdogan, as you know, is invading Syria, slaughtering the Syrian Kurds, and he's using terrorists from ISIS and Al-Qaeda as his militia. Now, this is something I've been warning about for years, that Erdogan's been assisting ISIS and other so-called jihadists in their quest to overthrow the Syrian government and establish a so-called Islamic caliphate. Erdogan's denied this for years, but the fact that he is now openly and brazenly creating militias of radical Islamists, including so-called former ISIS and Al-Qaeda terrorists, exposes him for what he is. He's a radical Islamist megalomaniac whose goal is to establish an Islamist caliphate with himself as the caliph, the supreme ruler.
Boom.
So to all the people saying, oh, she doesn't care about the Kurds, like during the debate, obviously she's saying, this is alluding to that, because it's like, she's just like, she was saying we need to get out, but she was saying like what Trump is doing and what's happening isn't the truth. And the reasons that all of these other presidential candidates were saying isn't the truth. The truth is we went in there because we wanted to get Assad out, and we wanted to initiate regime change, and all of this is a result of that. And Turkey is very much involved in that, and she understands that in a way that I think people need to give her the credit. Like, people need to be like, okay, not only has she fought overseas and she's still serving time, but she's also very, very cognizant of every situation in a way that I haven't seen most people, even who are secretaries of state. And she's very honest about it to the public. I mean, this is kind of information that normally wouldn't be shared with the American people. And it's very important to understand that. The majority of us don't know because these people in power don't share it. And she's every single day, she's like, okay, this is what's happening in Turkey. This is what's happening with Syria. This is what's happening with the Assad. And this is in every little thing she's talking about. And it's very, very key.
And we also talked yesterday on the show too as well. At one point, just to imagine this, ladies and gentlemen, at one point, through the Operation Sycamore Timber, or Timber Sycamore, through the CIA with Obama approval was providing arms, money, and weapons to these jihadists along with Turkey. They worked congruently to provide that, while the Pentagon at the same time was supporting and funding the Kurds, while the military-industrial complex was selling arms to all sides, making money hand over fist.
It's a game of battleship.
It's disgusting. And once again, and also on last night's show, I think that at one point that Mark Sloboda pointed out, like, well, people have to understand when they're electing a president, what are they electing them for? Where does the president have the most power? Commander-in-chief. Where do they have the ability to have the most change? It's right here. And once again, the hawk on terror, I'm going to keep saying it, this is where it's at. Nobody in our lifetime that I know of has specifically pointed out the right players and who we have to go after and who we have to stop funding, and that's how we do it. And as at the same time talking about the dove and the areas we need to get out.
And she's not even saying we need to go to war with these people. She's saying we need to stop funding them. Like, stay out of the business of the people that you've been meddling with, and just stop funding these people. And oftentimes that is how, that ends. And I think, I'm a pacifist myself, far more than Tulsi is, but she is a veteran and she understands the reality of the situation, and that is something that I think most people can't speak to. She has said she's not necessarily like a complete pacifist, and I know that makes a lot of people uncomfortable. But at the same time, it is because we have caused so much so much imbalance in the world with our creation of terrorism and our funding of these very evil terrorists like the Saudis, and I'm still going to include Israel in all of this. These people are they want to spread their control. Saudi Arabia wants to grow their empire. Israel, Turkey. I mean, this is all going to come to a certain point. And there's China over there too.
China.
And Russia. And it's
Russia.
always been about these world powers,
Yes,
you know,
proxy wars.
it's been especially about, you know, the situation with Russia, China, and the United States is also coming kind of into a sort of peak, and we're going to see that unfold as the time goes.
And one thing I've understood too is as I'm going through all this whole situation, we're diving even more and talking to people from these regions or people who know about these things, is that you have to accept the fact that every leader does have some form of blood on their hands.
It's not good guys.
It's
and
not
bad
good guys like this guys. I mean, even Assad has a dirty history too as well. But he was doing work for us and also torturing jihadists. But if you say anything, and people have to realize that the Mujahideen, which was the birth of all this was the Afghani war, where we funded the Afghans, these rebels. We called them moderate rebels. Remember Rambo 3. And this kind of spawned out into this disgusting, crazy group, which it's the tactics that we use through the CIA and what we're seeing in Hong Kong, what we saw in Kiev. It's violence. It's torture. Now, the Mujahideen has grown into all these groups, and we're talking about megalomaniacs that chop people's heads off. The only people that Hillary Clinton could have said we have to bring them to heel was about these groups, because they do have to be weeded out and destroyed. Their tactics and what they've done, and not to say that we haven't caused and created this beast, we have. I don't think Tulsi Gabbard's ever alluded to that, but these are the people that we have to be hawks on terror. These are radical, crazy maniacs that chop people's heads off. All the people who are in these regions say that, like the Max Blumenthal's, the George Galloways, the Mark Slobodas, they point out how these groups are. We have to be hawks on them. We have to eliminate them. But once again, Tulsi talks about diplomacy, and she also talks about not funding this so it doesn't continue to move on, and we don't continue to create terrorists. But it's a two-headed dragon that we have to chop off.
Right, and it's also the reason we continue obviously funding is because it makes us money. So the United States is putting once again interest and money of the very elite, and continuing to send our American people to these little proxy wars, and then continuing to create more death and destruction in these countries. So breaking news, fam.
Yeah, well, we need new people in there, so we need new good polls so we can get this stuff. We can stop this crazy news. You got some poll news for me, fam?
Yeah, so the New Hampshire poll shows Bernie in the lead and Tulsi rising. She rose, and she is at 5%.
No, it's okay. I already put it up there for you.
She's at 5%, and Bernie Sanders is leading at 21%. Elizabeth Warren close to him at 18%. Biden 15%. Buttigieg 10, and Yang, Klobuchar, and Tulsi are tied. Now, I have a feeling that Tulsi is probably higher.
7, 6, 7, 8. Yeah.
Just based on the fact that she's not included in a lot of these things. Like the same way they don't include Bernie. I think there was a poll where they didn't include Bernie. They were just like, oh, we're just showing the top 2 candidates. And it was Warren and Biden. They don't include Tulsi in a lot of these polls. Yeah. And so it's really, it's really good because I believe Sanders is probably much higher.
Yeah.
It's New Hampshire, for crying out loud. He should sweep that. Yeah. And that's good because it's going to be one of the first, and it's very important, of course, for momentum's sake that you do that. And if Tulsi can get some of these delegates there, that would be amazing for progressives. I mean, I'm telling you, that is how we win one of them in the presidency, and how we keep the establishment out. And they're going to try with every fiber of their existence to stay on there.
I think that what do we have here, and this is kind of what we were talking about way back when we were ranking these people, talking about these things. We always said it's going to be Sanders, Warren, and Biden are going to get the majority in the first. Now, I think Sanders is getting somewhere around 24%. I think Biden's somewhere around 12%. I think Warren is probably right there at 18%. But after that, it's when 4th, 5th place comes into play. I am not convinced that Buttigieg has 10%. I think he's around 7, 8%, and that's where I think that Gabbard is. If Gabbard can somehow get in there, and I think Yang's 7, 8%.
Yeah.
I think you're going to see Klobuchar at 2, Steyer at 1, Harris at 2, Booker at 2. O'Rourke will probably be lower than 2%. He really will. It just is not going to get the appeal, especially when you get people outside the bubble to come on in and vote for you in these primaries. So I think the battle is right there. Like we said, if Tulsi can get 4th, 5th place in Iowa, 4th, 5th place in New Hampshire, it's a new game, because a lot of those other people that are voting for like the Biden, or maybe even some of those people who are voting for Bernie and Warren, and that were voting for Buttigieg before, might some of them and come on over because they like the foreign policy and they see that she can win, or that she can make noise and she can go further. Right. So these first 2 spots, Iowa and New Hampshire, are just really, really important, and look for Gabbard to get in there, that 4th, 5th place.
I 100% agree. And I think it's important for Republicans and independents to register as Democrats and vote. If you don't like any of these candidates except Tulsi, you're like, oh, I'll vote for her if she gets her. No, you should make sure she gets her, because I mean, I understand them not being appealed to Sanders, but if you want to vote for somebody that has at least the decent foreign policy that you want, non-interventionism, and you're willing to work with as far as her domestics, you can. I think it's important that we keep someone like her there, because for a lot of these people, and I've talked to a lot of them, she's the only sane Democrat.
Yeah.
Because the way she presents the information is just like label free, and it just doesn't put off people a certain way that the other candidates do. And so I think it's important, if you want to get rid of the Bidens, the Warrens, eventually, like, you need to at least give this woman a fighting chance. And Yang is the other one too that people have, kind of crowded on. And I think if we keep a Yang and a Gabbard in there, eventually, if Bernie is threatened by Warren and the establishment and the superdelegates that are already forming coups to make sure he doesn't win, then we have an alliance there. Whether you like it or not, whether you think Yang is progressive or not, his votes are likely to go to Bernie's.
They are.
Tulsi's votes are likely to go to Sanders. Now, a lot of people want to say that she's taking votes away from Bernie. And here's the thing. A lot of these 2016 Sanders supporters that went to Tulsi went for her for a specific reason. A lot of it is the whistleblowers that haven't been addressed. A lot of it is what I'm going to talk about in a minute, which is the DNC, the rigging of the elections that he hasn't addressed. A lot of it is his foreign policy. And some of the people that support Tulsi were never going to support Bernie. They were either Trumpers or independents that don't vote. And that's the thing, like, that's not who's taking votes away from Bernie. The person that is going to be more likely to take the votes is Elizabeth Warren. Now, her base is made up majority of Hillary Clinton supporters. But the thing is, there's a whole campaign to convince you that Elizabeth Warren is progressive, that we need to push Bernie and Warren together. I mean, this is what they're doing, so you can be like, oh, okay, like, that's fine. She's against Wall Street. I had someone say yesterday that Tulsi is not a progressive, and Elizabeth Warren is the other progressive because she's against Wall Street. I'm like, can I show you her FEC filings, her open secrets, how she funneled super PAC money and PAC money, and how she's supported by the CEOs, and how Wall Street has said that she's not that bad? No, she's not. In presentation, she's against Wall Street, but behind the scenes, it's again another type of Obama.
I'm going to read some Super Chat contributions. Johnny, is there any way after I read these Super Chat contributions we can go to a quick commercial? Sick and tired of being sick and tired. I have something in the oven. I have to go up there really quick. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to do a quick commercial. That's one of our favorite videos anyways. But Douglas Carter left 2 Super Chat contributions. Douglas Carter, thank you so much for your generosity. And your Super Chat contribution is always appreciated on the couch.
Fam, will you let me say something? So, I don't want to.
Well, you come up with a good jingle.
I don't need a jingle. It doesn't have to be the same.
Douglas Carter says, another symptom of capitalism is when you take a friend or family to lunch and they think they are obligated to pay because you paid last time. Getting together with someone you love should not be a trade. We should be able to give freely without invoking guilt in the recipient.
Yeah, or you just can't take people out anymore because you can't.
You know what I do, Douglas Carter, is I learned how to cook, so therefore I can do that
Pasta
and show some love for a cheap way, and it saves me a few bucks. And yes, you're right, I do feel obligated to pay if somebody took me last time. Somebody's going to take me for dinner this Sunday. It's an old friend of mine, a guy I was going to go in the restaurant business with, and he tends to pay a lot, and I always feel obligated to pay. But he lets me know, hey, man, I'm well off. I'm going to pay. Don't you worry about it, and I love that stuff. So before we get to the next part, can we get a... Where's Mikey's? Okay, Mike, we're going to show you a little video, and I'll be right back after these messages.
Okay.
Well, some greedy people had a plan, build a pipeline across some sacred land. It seemed there were profits to be made. Some people tried to use their voices, say that there were other choices, but the oil companies would not be swayed. And while those rubber bullets bullets were flying, the water protectors kept on trying to have their message heard. The lack of coverage was absurd. But when Tulsi heard about their plight, she joined up with some vets and took a flight to North Dakota to set things right. So yeah, let's sing along. That's why we're singing, that's why the time for Tulsi is nigh. Supporting GABBARD's a great habit, you should give it a try. We need truth, the peace, and courage if we're gonna get by. And if you listen, here's another reason why. Listen, here's another reason why. Well, the situation in the Middle East is complicated to say the least. There's just so much that we don't hear. Intelligence was lacking proof, and Tulsi wanted to know the truth. So she took a little trip to Syria. And why do some of you find it so hard to understand why she sat down with Assad? Come on, it was a mission of peace. But that wasn't in the press release. Instead, the story that we heard had nothing to do with what actually occurred. They don't even know the meaning of their own words. They've been lying for so damn long. That's why we're singing, that's why the time for Tulsi is nigh. Supporting GABBARD's a great habit, you should give it a try. We need truth, the peace, and courage if we're gonna get by. And if you listen, here is one less reason why. Yeah, listen, here is one less reason why.
Some people wanted to. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to see more of that song, you can go to our boy, Mike Ungerleiter. I never say his name right because I just call him Ungie. Friend of the show, fan of the show, good friend in general. Made an awesome, great song, an awesome video. So please go to his YouTube, check it out.
And Johnny helped edit the video, which is
did.
why we're showing it too, because Johnny, that's Johnny's work.
We wanted to show you where we go hiking.
Is that where you guys go? I've never been there.
Well, I said me and Johnny. That's where
Okay.
we go
I've
hiking,
never been there, fam.
That's the
Last
boys'
time I tried to
place.
go hiking with you, you sprained your ankle. And
Because you
we
were
had to
running
go home.
ahead of me so quickly, and you were being all like Wonder Woman, and I'm like my chubby ass, rolled my ankle a little bit. But I was okay. I finished the hike.
Not really, fam.
Yeah, I
a
did because
10-minute
I
hike.
did it on the way down.
It was like a 10-minute
All
hike,
right, so
fam.
let's talk about this next tweet you put up right here,
Okay,
and
so-
this is some important stuff too.
So Bernie Sanders had a tweet that got a lot of pushback from a lot of progressives, including many of his supporters. So he said there's no, quote, voter fraud crisis. There is a voter suppression crisis because of cowardly Republicans who don't believe in democracy. Now, he's alluding to about 330,000 voter registrations that could be purged in Georgia. Of course, this has happened before. Stacey Abrams and the governor there, Greg Palast, who came in the studio, has talked about how corrupt the Republicans are and how they've been doing this. And they have for years. They've been doing this for years, okay? And this is mainly when it's in southern states that you see the Republicans, a lot of them do this. And it is a clear, proved situation that happens. What Bernie's referring to voter fraud is when the Republicans say that, oh, these illegals are voting. Or when they say, oh, they used a fake name and it's a dead person that's voting. That's what he's referring to voter fraud. I define that because people get confused and they're like saying the wrong thing. And he's right. That doesn't happen. I mean, it happens, but it is very, very rare. It is very difficult to
Kennedy
vote
and
twice
Nixon,
and
I think
to
it happened.
Yeah, it's just very, very difficult. And this
That's
is
how far back. Yeah.
right, but this is like a Republican usually an accusation against immigrants and against poor people and against people of color, that when they say this, like, oh, they're trying to vote illegally and blah 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 blah. And this is something I've always heard. Now, Bernie, I'm glad you're pointing this out. I'm glad that you're saying, that suppression is occurring. But what about the suppression in 2016? What about the suppression in these last congressional elections against Tiffany Caban? She hasn't even said anything. And I pointed it out. People started chanting, "You got robbed," during the rally in Queens. And Bernie and his campaign, and they're not talking about this. And in fact, they have supposedly a dedicated protocol, and they have people dedicated to seeing what this is going on, but frankly it's not enough. And so I basically just told Bernie, this is both Democrats and Republicans. Why, if the Democratic Party doesn't take accountability, how are we going to just continue calling out the Republicans, and then Trump's going to win again? Because the reality is it's not right. It's not, and I know he knows that as an independent. His whole career, he's pretty much seen that it is one big aisle. That's why he's an independent. I know he knows that. I also know he doesn't write these tweets. So to me, I was speaking directly to the campaign, this needs to be addressed. And you cannot continue not addressing the big elephant in the room. And honestly, I was one of many people that echoed this frustration. And you can go down the line, Jonny, and read people's
even said.
What Augie said, what Nico House said. And it's not just Tulsi supporters. You can see Bernard Brother, Bernie, talk about election fraud. This is a national pandering and will be used against us in 2020. Exactly, Bernard Brother. I mean, these are a lot of his supporters. This is why Bernie lost some of the supporters to Tulsi Gabbard, because she did call it out. This is why Bernie has lost some support to nobody. Yeah, to the Green Party, to independents, or people who just won't vote anymore, and to some Republicans. Like Anomaly. This is one of the things that bothers them. That why aren't you addressing this? Of course, we can think that all that matters is getting those Democratic votes. No, it's not. Because even in the primary, you're not going to get those centrist votes. And this is where I disagree with the strategy the campaign is taking, only focusing on the centrist of these people to try to be like, oh, the Republicans, the darn Republicans.
Yep.
We understand this isn't just the Republicans. Any average person understands that by now. And the reality is, if you don't address this, Trump is going to win again.
Yeah.
And it's such an important thing. And I said, Bernie, I'm voting for you, but you need to address this.
And doesn't this make him look hypocritical? Doesn't it make him look like, hey, man, I'm going to call out the Republicans, but I'm not going to call out my own side because I am running as a Democrat. And everybody, so many people, even Curry Dobson asked, Tulsi that question too at that town hall, because this is the thing that really gets people going. It's foreign policy, where she's been better, election integrity, where she's been better, and civil liberties, calling out and defending, the rights of publishers to say stuff like Julian Assange and the way we're being attacked and suppressed. She's been great at. And even Bernie people right here are calling out Bernie Sanders and telling him. And I don't know why he isn't doing it. Maybe he can't do it. Maybe he's pressured not to do it. But it does seem like it seems like he's trying to win the Democratic primary, and he's staying with his own bubble, and he's kind of calling to the people who love to hear, yeah, the Republicans are awful, they're bad. Yeah, but so are the Democrats. Yeah, but they're not as bad as Trump.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And it's going after them.
But there's probably a few of those people that are going to vote for him. The majority of those people aren't going to come out to the primary for him. They're going to come out to the primary for Elizabeth Warren. They're going to come out to the primary for Joe Biden. They're not going to come out to the primary for him.
Yeah.
They're just not. Those people aren't your base. And if you have too many politicos and insider establishment strategists running the campaign geared, that's supposed to be a grassroots campaign, and you're absolutely not speaking our language, you are going to lose us. And that is a huge problem. And I think there's an overconfidence in the way whoever is doing a lot of this advising.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you're completely wrong on how you're advising him. And I know he knows, because Bernie in 2016 was more vocal about this. He was more vocal about the Democratic, the DNC, the corruption in the party. And obviously he has shifted, and we all see that. And I get it, and I get that it's a strategy, but I don't agree with it. And I think it's hurting. I think it's hurting him ultimately. Yeah. And this is why he's lucky that Tulsi Gabbard is in the race, because otherwise he would completely lose all of those votes.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. That's why I see her as such a key piece. And a lot of people still
aren't
really seeing that. They're not really seeing that. It's hello. This is something that needs to be addressed. So.
I wish you had that. Hello, McFly. Think McFly. And I got to tell you, fam, I get disappointed, the tweet about the Arab Spring. I get disappointed about, even the Julian Assange stuff or the silence, or I get disappointed when he gets those things wrong, but nothing pisses me off more than that.
Right.
The fact that he's just trying to label out and single out the Republican Party as opposed to holding your party accountable.
Hold the Republican Party accountable, but also hold the Democratic Party
too.
Nobody has, he hasn't talked about 2016 at all. So it's frustrating. It's really frustrating. A person that's had a come to Jesus moment.
Praise Jesus.
It's Peter Dow. And it's funny because he blocked a lot of progressives. So a lot of them are like, hey, can you send me the screenshots of what he's saying?
Yeah,
because
I know. Start releasing people, Peter.
He's been saying more outrageous things than Bernie has said about Obama. So let's look at what he said about Barack Obama. He said, yes, Barack Obama, the world is messy. But that doesn't make droning babies, indefinite detention, and extrajudicial killings okay. Those are moral travesties. And if it's a purity to reject those things, then I stand accused of being a purist. No, I know. And then
somebody stole his shit, fam. He didn't do that, did he?
Fam, he said harsh truth.
No.
The entire Dem establishment played a role in allowing the far right to ascend to the principle of power, to overturn the judiciary, to shred our rights and values. That includes the Clintons, Obama, Biden, Pelosi, Schumer, Hoyer, etc. The party needs an overhaul.
Wow.
I'm like, okay, he smoked something, and I want to put whatever he smoked out in the halls of Washington D.C. I want him to share whatever, because we have a revolution, and Peter Dow is saying more than Bernie Sanders. What is going on?
I gotta retweet it. I'm like, is this really Peter Dow?
I don't know. I maybe he was abducted by aliens and.
Is this really Peter? I'm putting it up.
I don't know.
I mean, the fact that he's calling about the Clintons, the Obamas, the Bidens, the Pelosis, the Schumers. What happened? I thought, how did the Clintons let him do this?
Do you know about Peter Dow, Johnny?
No, I don't know.
Okay,
who's Peter Dow?
He used to be completely anti-Bernie, smear him.
He worked for the Clinton campaign.
Anti-progressive. He smeared him every chance he got. He blocked all progressives for calling him out on his I don't even know. It'd be like Neera Tanden. Almost. Not quite. Almost.
Close to it.
Close to Neera Tanden being like, we need to hold the Democratic Party accountable. It is crazy.
And the thing about it is Peter Dow was very, very harsh to progressive supporters of Bernie Sanders. Not just to Bernie Sanders like he would go after the people following Bernie Sanders, and he would talk about they have this kind of cultish mentality and really demean us and put us down. So the fact that he's coming out and the fact that he's using Clinton and Obama by his name, fam, we got to get whatever he's smoking.
Yeah.
And that was in response to what? What that tweet was in response to what?
One of Obama's statements.
So he was at a foundation summit, and he said this idea of purity and you're never compromised and you're politically woke and all that stuff.
Yeah.
You should get over that pretty quickly. The world is messy. There are ambiguities. People who do really good stuff have flaws.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting because even Tulsi has been really soft on Obama, and that's why I'm like, I don't like that. I don't like that. Both her and Bernie have been very soft on Obama. Yeah.
Actually, about 30 minutes ago when we started, she actually tweeted this.
In a nutshell, Obama is saying we need a little more aloha spirit, being respectful and calling and caring for one another, not being so quick to judge, not seeing everything as black and white. I hope you all join me in bringing in the spirit of aloha to the White House.
I agree that not everything's black and white. Yes, 100%. I agree with her there, but you don't need to make excuses for Obama. I don't think neither her or Bernie need to make excuses for Obama or Biden or any of. Yeah, it's a political move. It's total. Like, we hate it when you do political moves. We hate it when Bernie does it. We hate it when you do it. We hate it. And it's like, no, I get it. I get it. But you don't need to do that. You don't need to do that at this point. We need to be honestly calling out all warmongers, including Barack Obama. I mean, the lawyer called him out.
Yeah.
I would expect her to do
Well, that's
the
the thing.
same.
She was right there on the stage with him as he was getting called
she
out.
knows.
She understood. She knows. She understands.
She knows.
So I think this is kind of like, if that floats out there, it's a little, what's the word I'm looking for? When you clean something up, when it gets out of hand, you have to go, prevention?
Yeah.
You have to go clean it back up. This little resource prevention over here, kind of like, okay, I don't want to lose any Obama voters right there. I kind of, you know what I'm saying? But like, once again, you and several other people have the point of the mindset that Obama voters, Biden voters, supporters will never support her, might never support her. I don't know.
It's personal to me.
She never attacks them personally.
It's personal for a lot of us, so. Yeah. It's personal for a lot of us millennials who voted for Obama.
Yeah.
I mean, who literally were like, oh, hope and change. And then he turned it around and like screwed it over. He sold out. He was like the guy we thought was going to be like Bernie. and then he turned around and completely sold out. Do I think he's a terrible, terrible, awful person? Do I think he's Hillary Clinton? No. Do I think he's a warmonger? Yes. I don't think he's an evil person. I think he had other intentions, but I think he's always been pretty much a capitalist. He's always been like pretty much on that level. And I think a lot of people, because he's so charismatic and this and that, have made excuses for him. Yeah. But to be honest, like to me, it's those excuses end because it was personal. He lied to a lot of us. He bailed out Wall Street. That was my generation. And
he was a puppet, right?
We're absolutely. And this is why I'm not soft on him. And a lot of us are living the consequences. A lot of us, it's kind of like people who feel betrayed by, let's say, like what Bernie did or whatever. It's kind of like that. Like I feel betrayed. 100-fold. Because Barack Obama became the same status quo politician that we didn't want in there. Yeah. And you know, he sold out entirely, and he sold all of the American people out. Yeah. So for our politicians like Bernie and Tulsi to be so soft on him, it's like, you guys don't get it. You guys need to understand where we're coming from. And yes, things aren't black and white, but what he did, he needs to be held accountable to what he did and what he continued and perpetuated. And a lot of people don't like to talk about the kids in cages and put it all on Trump. He initiated that. Yeah. He absolutely did.
And he also went out and campaigned and supported Debbie Wasserman Schultz, endorsed her while she was making major profits in Florida. She even admitted it.
And he didn't support Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, he didn't. You know,
at all.
He supported Hillary at the end of the day, whatnot. You know, he did the same thing he did to Dennis Kucinich. He took him in privately to talk to him, said this is the way it got to go. Yep. And WikiLeaks revelations just revealed so much more shit on Obama than it even did on Hillary Clinton, that he was given a list from bankers and from Wall Street to say, this is who you can hire for administration-wide when it comes to finance. And he hired the same people that worked for George Bush, Larry Saunders, Tim Geithner, the people who really helped deregulate the market and really harm the everyday average worker. He hired them as well. And his whole thought process was, or his excuse was, I'm hiring people who are familiar with the situation to fix it. Bullshit. You carried on their policies. How about your other friend, though, fam?
Biden.
Uncle Joe.
I haven't been paying much attention to Biden, and a lot of people criticize Tulsi, and because it's like, she's not attacking Biden. I'm like, he attacks himself. There's no point in attacking him. And here's another example
a bunch of malarkey
of how he's attacking himself. There's this hashtag going around from Gen Z people. Hold on. I was just real quick. There's this hashtag going around from the Generation Z who's like rolling their eyes at a lot of what the baby boomers are saying because they're completely out of touch. And this is Gen Z. This isn't millennials. And they're saying the hashtag is okay boomer. And it seems kind of mean. But when you hear what people like Joe Biden have to say, it makes sense.
I don't believe you. I want to see a license.
I don't have it with me. Can I have it?
Of course.
A great birthday wish?
That's awesome.
Happy birthday.
And a birthday wish to me would be if you can somehow, once you're elected, to do something about student debt. My daughter's finishing up a dental program. By the time she graduates, she will be over $900,000 in debt.
My 3 children graduated. $298,000. I'm still paying it.
We're still paying their undergraduate.
By the way, there's a way. What I propose for docs, whether dentists and docs, if they do work in communities that are underserved for a period of time, their debt gets forgiven.
That would be awesome.
Well, that's
Can we join? I think our debt's down.
So I know you just told me your kid is going to be $900,000 in debt, which is ridiculous. That's almost $1 million. What is wrong with society? And then he goes, "Oh yeah, my 3 children, $200-something thousand in debt," as if he's not rich, as if I'm still paying it. Bullshit. I'm sorry. There's no way. This man is wealthy. This man is rich, and he's just going back at this woman like, I know you have problems, but here's my problem, and here's my like half-ass solution to it that is just a bullshit answer. Yeah. No, Joe. And then he complained about, in another tweet he made or another speech he gave to the Hill, he complained about losing because he's not a socialist. And you're not losing because you're not a socialist. You're losing because you're not paying attention to the inequality and what working people are asking. And that's why you're losing. You're not losing because you're not a socialist. Yeah. Nobody on that stage is a socialist. Let that be very clear.
Let's talk about this too, fam, as well, because this is really like really deep stuff because a lot of people are going to buy that shit that he just said.
Yeah.
He's actually saying this, and as at foreign policy junkies and people who know about Ukraine and what had happened, he's took over $1 million from them. China, the same thing. You ain't paying for squat, sir, and you're giving some bullshit fucking answer to some bill that you are never going to write. Where's that proposed bill? Let me see that if you go work in underserved communities that you're going to wipe out their debt. Let me see that.
And that's
just
for,
a bunch of malarkey.
And that's
lip
only for
service.
doctors and dentists. And that's bullshit, you know? Like, there's no specific bill for only doctors and dentists.
Lip service,
Why are you
fam.
doing that? Just say it. Student
Fucking
debt forgiveness.
lip
It's not that
service.
hard. We can
Lip
pay for it.
service. The Onion's got a joke, fam.
Okay, so I just wanted to show that because it's funny.
I didn't put that one up yet.
Elizabeth, it just pretty much said that Elizabeth Warren was disappointed after her DNA toast zero trace of presidential material. The Onion. I mean, The Onion is more real news now than our actual news. And I just want to point out how upside down the world is. But there's something more important going on, fam.
Yeah, Max Blumenthal we're going to talk about right now. The other day,
Yeah.
he was just on
Jimmy Dore.
And it was kind of funny. He was on RT last night. We're going to break down that thing. But you can see right there, it says the charges are 100% false as the Gray Zone editor of Max Blumenthal arrested months after reporting on the Venezuelan opposition violence. And this is the time, Johnny, you did a lot of great work when we were outside the embassy and you reported it. You were the first one talking to Tulsi Gabbard. We asked her when they stormed and whatnot. If we can remember correctly, Blumenthal was out there. He was looking. He was talking to people. And he saw the Juan Guaido's leader. God, I keep forgetting his name.
Are you talking about when he was in Venezuela, or are you talking about the embassy?
This is in the embassy because this is what they arrested him for.
No. So Juan Guaido is the leader of the opposition.
Juan Guaido, the opposition leader, who was trying to get his henchmen in there.
Yes.
Because the protectors were holding it down for the Maduro government.
Right. So the protectors were holding down the embassy for for Venezuela because that is the legitimate government that's in there. Yeah. And the Donald Trump sent in troops. He sent in police forces to take them out and force them out. And Alex, what's his name? Alex Rubenstein, Max Blumenthal, Ayanna Parampil, and Kevin Sees were all there. And we spoke to Kevin Sees during that time. He was holding out over there with Margaret Flowers.
Yes.
And the Code Pink movement as well. They were all in there holding it down. And so what happened was that Trump got involved because he sent money in and he was supporting the opposition and making it seem like the opposition was right, like the opposition was trying to save Venezuela to spread democracy. And all of these people, they were starving them. They had to push food.
Jesse Jackson sent food up there. But that's what Max Blumenthal was. They went after him, fam, was trying to feed those protectors.
And not to mention that the Guaido opposition was funded by the U.S., but also they were mean. The things that they were saying,
racist,
they were calling them homophobic and racist remarks.
Puto, mierda. They were really
calling
hard.
them ugly. They called an indigenous woman that she was saying that you're an ugly Indian. This is a racial thing too in Venezuela.
Oh, no doubt.
Like we have said before. So it was disgusting the things they were saying. So Max Blumenthal was simply reporting on these things. And from the side of the oppressed. And then look what happens.
Yes, he caught Carlos Vecchia going into the car, and he started questioning him. He was there on the ground, and that's the thing he was doing. He was trying to give them food, but as they were giving them food, you saw how Jesse Jackson had to fight back.
Yeah.
And once again, the Secret Service and the FBI, and they kind of stood aside and let each side kind of go at each other without going too far. So as they were trying to lift these food up there, they were fighting people trying to keep the food from going in. So Max Blumenthal, who really, he just doesn't paint a picture of going after Obama like he did in the management of savagery against Hillary Clinton. Max Blumenthal, more than anybody, also paints a picture of how Donald Trump is not only continuing, there it is, Johnny, you can put this up, not continuing, but pushing further even more this anti-Islamophobic kind of mentality where he's dividing people, and Trump is a big part of that. So the fact that they had this situation with all these people out here trying to get food, and these other people trying to stop them, they're going after Max Blumenthal for this. And they don't have any hard evidence when it comes to it.
And this happened months ago.
Yes, months ago.
It's
they just knocked down this door and everything just recently.
Yeah. And it's disgusting that they're doing this now. And here's the thing, and I think Caitlin Johnstone put on a good tweet. Like, first they came from, the whistleblowers for Assange, and now they're coming from Max Blumenthal. I mean, we have to be talking about these things. These are just journalists doing their jobs.
Yes.
That's it.
And
that's all they're doing.
And you're talking about a journalist who's on the ground, fam.
Yeah, all the time.
The one who's there. One who
time.
goes there, Ben Norton, Anya Parampel, Matei,
all of
Blumenthal,
these people went to Venezuela
Greenwald,
as well.
Awesome.
They were in Venezuela. They've talked to the Venezuelan people. They've seen what's actually going on the ground.
There he is.
And
this is the one you talked about, racist stuff.
Yeah, these people. And it's bad. And so the United States, of course, this is why Donald Trump is not a non-interventionist. This is one of the many examples he has shown.
Because he supported these people.
He supported and funded the Guaido.
Funded these people.
And you could tell that they were funded by him.
$41 million he just gave to Guaido to take care of stuff. That's and just, disgusting. You know what I'm saying? Now, the reason why they went after Blumenthal is because a lot of people, and that's Obama's whole shtick, Trump's whole shtick when it comes to foreign policy is to always blame Obama. This was Obama's war. I handed Obama's war. And what did I do? I got out. They would have never done it. He keeps on highlighting the fact that, okay, he didn't decide to bomb Iran, that he went and talked to Kim Jong-un, that he's moving the troops out of Syria, and he's going to blame it all and put it on Obama. And a lot of people will bite that and say, okay, Trump is to the left of Obama when it comes to war, when it comes to foreign policy. But that's where Max Blumenthal comes into play and shows the connections and the continuous line. Now, take a look at this here. We're going to go to this YouTube video because while we were doing our show with Mark Sloboda, Max Blumenthal was going on RT, and watch how he draws a direct line. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, this is how you attack Donald Trump. Take a look.
Intervention. And, this isn't surprising that the U.S. is now alleging that there might be another chemical attack because the Trump administration, and this goes to the heart of another theme in the book, which is the contradictions of the national security state. The most Islamophobic administration in U.S. history is actually protecting the base of the largest franchise of al-Qaeda since 9/11, which is Idlib. And this goes unmentioned when the U.S. makes these strange allegations about chemical attacks. But the whole point of this allegation is to once again trip the red line. And as a former Obama advisor told Harper's, imposing the red line policy is an invitation for a false flag attack, the same kind of false flag attack that we apparently witnessed last year in Duma, which an OPCW engineers report that was suppressed revealed.
Okay, well, I have to say that
the
press here is saying...
So he called it the most Islamophobic administration in American history. Okay, pointing out the policies that we continue to protect. In Idlib, what we did was we went along with Turkey and we protected a bunch of jihadist Islamic fundamentalists over there. Okay, this is Donald Trump doing that. And Max Blumenthal always points these things out. He points out the atrocities through sanctions in this next part, if you want to take a look. I know we have a long show we're going here.
What is effectively an asset in the National Security Council should be chilling to anyone.
Talking about U.S. policy, trying to starve people into submission, the European Union and the British government obviously seek the overthrow of the Venezuelan government. What did you make of this week's announcement that the United States is trying to stop an infamous food program for the poor in Venezuela?
Yeah, on the one hand, you have the United States kind of coming out in the open and essentially admitting that its goal with sanctions is to starve the Venezuelan people, especially the poorest members and most vulnerable members of its society. The CLAP program feeds over 6 million Venezuelans. Over 15% of Venezuelan society depends on these bi-monthly food boxes that also provide sanitary supplies. And I saw how it was distributed, how effective and important it is, and how it's distributed without political preference. And the U.S. now wants to apply sanctions on this. So the Venezuelan opposition has to decide now, do they want to have the mass starvation of their own constituents on their hands? And that means going along with Washington's agenda. And I can actually see the Venezuelan opposition starting to fragment with larger and larger segments moving towards dialogue, which is what needs to happen to get Venezuela out of this crisis. And of course, Washington and the Organization for American States, which is its tool in Latin America, want anything but dialogue and mediation. So we're actually seeing a rift between Washington and the Venezuelan opposition. And I think that's actually a positive development for Venezuelans, even as they starve and die under sanctions.
He said starve and die under sanctions. And we had Tulsi on this very couch, and we asked her that question. Remember, fam, we played it the other day, and I say it all the time. The United States doesn't even give information to their Congress about what the sanctions, who they affect, and who they really hurt. And we've been reporting on sanctions, how they're an act of war. Donald Trump has been the sanction king.
Mm-hmm.
I love it when you put up sanctions are coming the other day, Johnny, because it's so true. Donald Trump is he hasn't put troops on the ground, but he has supported rebels, and he has now increased these sanctions that hurt who, fam? The poor,
well,
the most
he has
vulnerable.
put troops on the ground a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, in
But
the
not-
areas, once again, when it comes to Syria, he's going to say Obama did it first. When it comes to Afghanistan, he's going to say Obama did it first. Even when it comes to Venezuela, Obama said they were a national security threat before Donald Trump said it was. So he's going to always continue it, but he has increased the sanctions, which are really hurting the poor and most vulnerable people. And here in this next clip, it just shows you another Trump's disgusting behavior. He doesn't care. It's all about money, baby. He doesn't care who he's
All about the
supporting.
Benjamins.
That's it.
The epigraph to the book is from Donald Trump, one of the epigraphs where Trump says, "We underscore that states that sponsor terrorism are falling victim to the evil they promote." The book is full of information sources, perhaps WikiLeaks and so on. Are you surprised that actually the information is clearly there? I'm not sure Trump was specifically talking about the United States. I think he was talking about Iran there.
Yeah, well, one of the other quotes in the epigraph is from a WikiLeaks document. It was a State Department email from Jake Sullivan, Hillary Clinton's longtime foreign policy advisor, gleefully declaring that al-Qaeda is on our side in Syria. And so it casts Trump's disgusting quote, where he was actually sort of celebrating an ISIS attack on the Iranian parliament, a democratic institution in Iran, in a very ironic light. And this is the price that the U.S. has paid for getting in bed with jihadists and extreme Islamists to achieve a geopolitical goal. 9/11, the whole catastrophe of the war on terror, the boondoggle of Iraq, the destruction of Libya, the fragmentation of Syria and the refugee crises, as well as the rise of the Islamophobia industry that figures like Donald Trump drew on to gain national popularity.
And just
right there. So once again, being so specific to point it out, you want to know how you attack Donald Trump? Textbook right here.
Right.
Textbook. Not the way he's the most horrible thing. Let's take down his Twitter. Oh, it's awful. It's just disgusting. We
have to attack him on policy.
Yeah. And the whole thing was like the most disgusting thing that I saw lately was when Adam Schiff made this whole theater when he did this whole thing about the phone call. Remember, it's terrible. I'm going to tell you 7 times, and you better listen.
Pasta's writing a play based on that in L.A.
This theater over here, and it was just terrible what he did. And he painted this whole picture, and then you look at the transcripts, and you see that phone call with Ukraine, and it's nothing like there.
Yeah.
But then Donald Trump will go on TV, and he'll talk about we're securing the oil fields, we're just stealing them from Syria, and we're going to decide what to do with it. Do you hear anything from the Democrats? Nothing.
Zip.
Fucking crickets.
Because they make money.
Crickets. Such hypocritical pieces of shite. And here's the last point. And, I didn't put up my tweet because I did put a tweet. Even when I was wearing this shirt and I went on the Jimmy Dore show, I said the most racist thing we can do as a country is continue on with our imperialistic ways. We are bombing and killing mostly people of color and indigenous people. And looks what Mad Max has to say.
It doesn't matter as long as they're not American, right, guys?
Yeah,
as long
I know,
as
right?
you don't care about foreign policy.
Social justice. What are you fighting for? You want to fight against racism? The most racist thing we can do. Watch what Mad Max has to say.
Finally, it's clear in the book that President Obama, there's Hillary Clinton, the DNC come under particular scrutiny in this book. Ironic that you tend to privilege or accuse of privileging class over identity when you seem to show in the book that Clinton, Michelle Obama even, let alone President Obama, it's the DNC that is responsible for attacking LGBT rights, being pro-racist, being misogynist, being Islamophobic, anti-Semitic, anti-Christian, anti-communist?
The considerations of the global population, which is mostly brown and black, never comes into focus when foreign policy decisions are made. And so when on the side of the Democrats, you have the liberal interventionists who speak the rhetoric of the responsibility to protect doctrine, of humanitarian interventionism. And what they always wind up achieving when they intervene in a place like Libya is to make the most vulnerable populations of those societies the most exposed to harm from extreme sociopathic elements. And so in Libya, you had the black Tuareg population getting massacred after NATO's intervention. In Syria, you have pogroms and the mass slaughter of religious minorities, Christians, Shia, Alawites. And so, you know, it really casts the identity politics that emerge out of the halls of the DNC and that are really the official line of the Democratic Party in an ironic light when you consider what happens to populations on the other side of the gun when there's a Democratic administration in power. And of course, you see continuity through the Trump administration more than anything, despite the freak out that the national security state and the Democrats have had about Trump being president and supposedly being Putin's puppet. Trump has been much more aggressive across the Middle East than Obama actually was. He, unlike Obama, not only intervened twice directly in Syria, bombing Syria twice apparently on the basis of false information, but he has armed the Ukrainian military. He's imposed much harsher sanctions on Iran and on Russia and Venezuela. So it's not only continuity, but a constant escalation that harms the most vulnerable people of the world, who happen to be mostly brown and black.
Exactly.
And if this was a microphone, Max Blumenthal would have just went like this.
Exactly. And I love the part, of course, that he said it's interesting hearing seeing the Democratic Party line up behind identity politics. This is why I'm so against identity politics of the liberals, because they love to lead with their values. They love to promote Latino people and Black people as their tokens that show how woke they are and how advanced they are and how not racist they are. At the same time, they're funding wars that kill millions now of people of color that are brown and black. It doesn't matter because we don't see it. And that's why I get so angry. And I think that's why people like Tulsi Gabbard throw them off, because here's a woman of color that refuses to engage in your bullshit identity politics and focuses on stopping these wars that kill these people, and they can't handle that. They're like, no, she must be awful. She must be a Republican. She must be a Russian asset. It's like, no, she's a threat because she's literally pointing out your hypocrisy. And that's why I'm done with focusing on Trump as a racist, sexist, whatever. Yeah, all of that can be true. But if you're not focused on what he's doing policy-wise, you're not really talking about anything. It's just vacuum. It's nothing.
And you need to get out of your own echo chamber. You need to get out of your own bubble, because this last election, half the people didn't even vote, okay? Because they don't think why, Johnny. We talked about this before. Your friends, why didn't they vote? You had Molly pick the wrong candidate, and that was cool. At least she went and voted. But most of the time, these people don't vote. Why? Because they don't trust it. They don't understand. They don't believe in the system. They think it's going to lie and cheat to them. And when you have a champion, she's a champion of the people, like Tulsi, coming out and speaking about what went down, 9/11, who attacked us, where attacked us, specifically pointing out who she's going to be a hawk on, this kingdom of Saudi Arabia and much more. That's why she's going to bring people that didn't vote out and bring it in. You people who are sitting in the Democratic Party who never talk about these foreign policy issues, you need to get with speed, okay? Because this is the area where the president will have the most power to do these things. You want universal health care? Commission's going to sit down. People are going to have to get in a room. You have to deal with Congress. You're going to have to talk to Dennis Kucinich. You're going to have to make deals. It's going to take a long, long time to make these things happen. But on day one, if a President Tulsi Gabbard gets in there, our foreign policy changes immediately, and that saves the lives of mostly people of color and indigenous people who are constantly getting bombed and terrorized by us.
And the money that we're spending as well. Of course, this money is, we can spend it anyway. But the point is the hypocrisy of it. Let's have some, let's really tell the truth here. We don't care about these people because they're not American. Okay, I get it. But we need to understand the connection between foreign policy and domestic policy. And I put a lot of the domestic issues. I understand why they're important to you because you live with it every day in this country. You're trying to fight to live another day, to pay your bills, to eat food, to pay your rent. A lot of people are feeling like that. This is why they use that against you. Yeah. So you don't have to know about everything else that's going on. But it's all connected.
I think we should end the show like that. Johnny, you got anything else before we get on out of here? We have another appointment to go to.
Yeah, no, let's go.
All right, so I want to say thank you to a Super Chat contribution from Mikey Ungerleiter. Thank you for the Super Chat contribution, and it's always appreciated on the couch. AOC has a pathetic stance re Venezuela. Proves to me that the color of her lips isn't lipstick. It's dingleberry residue from the butts of the party bosses. You know what? I can't even argue that statement. I talk about it all the time when she shunned Max Blumenthal trying to talk to her in the halls of Congress. And she also led a statement said she would defer to the leadership in her caucus which was an automatic death sentence to anybody involved and any citizen, any poor citizen of Venezuela. It's disgusting. She should know.
We need more foreign policy
and Ilhan's comments.
People, yeah, AOC is great when she's attacking Mark Zuckerberg. She's great when she's attacking Republicans. She's pushed the overtone window forward. What she did for Bernie Sanders, I think it's still helping him in a way. I think that's good. But there are criticisms, and my criticism of her is her foreign policy. Yeah. And again, Tulsi, when it comes to foreign policy as a congressperson, Tulsi is light years ahead of all of her peers. And I think it's important to have that. I think it's also important to pay attention to people like in city council and those people doing the work inside and building, like what's her name, Kasharma Savant, I think I'm saying it right, in Washington D.C. And I think it's important to support these people on either ends, but we need more people to understand foreign policy, to be equated to it, to like push it in Congress, because this isn't a separate thing. We have to completely stop that mentality that is separate. It's all connected.
It's all connected.
All right,
ladies and gentlemen, thank you for so much. There was almost 400 people today on our YouTube. That was great. And there was over 100 people on our Facebook today. Yeah. Unfortunately, my chat doesn't work in Facebook, but I know Steve Wolbrandt was there. Michiko.
Why is that not working?
Something is wrong with my computer or the chat. Who knows?
Sorry, guys. We're not ignoring you.
We weren't ignoring you. We just couldn't see it. But thank you so much to all those people, who were on today. That was almost 500 people total at one point, and that's great. If you haven't gone over to our Rockfin, ROKFIN, please do so. It is a cryptocurrency backed platform, which is really giving a lot of control and love to the creators and not raping us like YouTube is. Also, for our Patreon lovers, we are at 80. Thank you so much. We love you as well. And if you have a chance to go over to our Patreon, please do so. Like, share, subscribe, our YouTube, our Twitch, our Twitter, Rockfin, and Periscope. For Pasta Jardula,
Fiorella,
Johnny Sue is still on those 1s and 2s.
Peace.
CONVO out.
Bye.